So I got to the interview, and as I shared with you, it was a CAD technician position. And so when I spoke to the guy that was interviewing me, he just kind of told me that they have a position for a manufacturing engineer. However, I don't have any experience, and so he would not want to. They're looking for someone with at least 3 to 5 years of experience. And I said, okay. And so he said, I want you to meet my boss, and I want you to talk to him. So I did a second interview with his boss, and when I got in the interview with his boss, we're just chatting. He's just asking me questions. He was very impressed that I was a former teacher that turned engineer. So that was something that was very impressive. A lot of people that I interviewed with just, oh my gosh, you were a teacher? And so when they learned that, they were just like wanting to hear about why I left teaching. So the interview kind of got off track a little bit because he had to know, how did you as a language arts teacher end up here? And so we talked and we just hit it off very well. He really liked my personality. And I told him, and he asked me at the end of our conversation, he said, do you have any questions for me? And I said, yes. I said, I know that I'm interviewing for this CAD technician position. I said, but I'm really interested in your manufacturing engineering position because I have a mechanical engineering degree and I would like to use it. And he said, you want to be the manufacturing engineer? And I said, yes, sir. And he said, really? I said, yes, sir. I said, I know that I don't have the experience. I said, but I've been in the workforce before, and so I'm a pretty quick learner, and I believe that I could do the manufacturing engineer position. And he said, okay. He said, you got it. And I just looked at him like, huh? Wait a minute. I just casually mentioned that I wanted this position, and he's looking at me telling me, you got it. So I went there to interview as a CAD technician position, and I left there with a manufacturing engineer position. So I interviewed with two other engineers. One was the lead engineer, two lead engineers. And again, everyone was so impressed that I was a former teacher. And the interview easily went to, how did you end up here? How, they wanted to know my matriculation through the engineering program. And I shared with them my experience. And again, everyone was just so impressed with my story. And so the next thing I knew, I was just telling them, they were just like, so when are you having your baby? And I was like, well, the due date is next week and I can start in May. And they were like, awesome, we'll wait for you. And that's exactly what they did. So when I came out to the car, I told you my mom drove me to the interview, and I came out and I was smiling, and she was like, what you so smiley about? And I was like, I got the job. And she said, you got the job? And that's when she shared with me that she thought that I wouldn't get the job because I was 9 months pregnant, and typically people don't really take a lot of chances, I guess, with pregnant women. And that story about how I got my first job was just like a testament to God's faithfulness. That was nothing but God, in my opinion. They hired me with no experience, just off of the strength of, we believe in her. We're going to give her a chance. And it turned out to be a very good experience for me. I'm glad that God found it fitting that I got my beginnings in that company because that was a company that had not had engineers. They had design engineers, but never a manufacturing engineer. And so I kind of feel good because I became a part of that company's history, and I was able to dive right in. So those of you that are engineers, you know how it is when you go to a company that is not used to having engineers and you are like the first manufacturing engineer that has ever walked through the door. Plenty of work to do, right? Yeah, so my work was cut out for me in a good way because I had no experience and I got so much experience there. So that concludes my story of landing my first engineering job.